the work is carried on then by William Lloyd Garrison, okay, in Boston, okay, who runs a newspaper. He's a publicist by profession, all right? And William Lloyd Garrison's father had been a sailor, and his father died young, and his mother was very poor and unable to, not provide a lot of riches, like wealthy, comfortable living for him. But she was a very strong Christian. He was a Baptist. And so there was this strong element of that, say, second Great Awakening, first Great Awakening type of religion, where it's all centered on the personal call to conversion, okay, and going out and achieving moral good for the world, okay. So William Lloyd Garrison is raised by his mother in this, and he's born very close to where George Whitefield preached, the preacher that had come over from England back in the First Great Awakening. So there's these ties between First and Second Great Awakening and the abolition movement very early on, okay. But William Lloyd Garrison is someone who works for a while in Baltimore, which we see from Frederick Douglass is a place where there are lots of slaves walking around, okay? And he's working for a Quaker named Benjamin Lundy, and he's working on a periodical, okay? Well, when he's 25, Garrison returns from Baltimore to Boston, and he's determined to kind of pick up the cause of anti-slavery through publication, through newspapers, through pamphlets, in the way that David Walker has done. So he kind of picks up where David Walker left off. And in January of 1831, a few months after Walker has been killed, he gives the first issue of his anti-slavery newspaper, The Liberator. And he does so because he's financially supported with investments from the free black community in Boston. So they recognized, okay, we saw what Walker did. That's important. We need to keep this thing going. Garrison comes back. He's making the appeal. They encourage him. And it's this kind of rising middle class of black people financially supports Garrison to put out the first issue of The Liberator. Okay? And so initially it's kind of local, and it's especially going to readers in black neighborhoods, black people, and receiving support from them. It's also receiving some funds from some wealthy businessmen in New York as well. That's going to also be a boon for it, okay? But Garrison really defines what abolitionism is about as a movement. So, number one, it's about the immediate end of slavery everywhere in the United States. Nothing gradual, nothing incremental. We're no longer waiting around. It has to end now, right? Immediately. It's a moral evil that cannot be tolerated, that we cannot abide with, that we cannot live with, that we must end now. So that's the central element for Garrison, whereas many of the founding fathers were willing to wait, right? Like Adams is going to wait and not push the issue. Garrison says, no more waiting. We're going to end slavery now, okay? And then the other thing is he carries on Walker's emphasis on, look, we need to fight for full racial equality in the United States. We need to focus on integration rather than separation. So Garrison also carries that element of what Walker did on. And he founds then in 1832 what was called the New England Anti-Slavery Society, okay? And it was dedicated to these principles of ending slavery now and fighting for full racial equality for black people. And within a few years, it becomes a national organization, okay? So first it spread throughout the North, okay? And primarily it is going to be based in the North, right? But it becomes the American Anti-Slavery Society, the American Anti-Slavery Society, William Lloyd Garrison's network. And there's all sorts of little local affiliations of it. And it grows extremely quickly. So in 1835, it's got 200 local affiliates. That is, chapters or auxiliaries or little groups that have official ties to the American Anti-Slavery Society. Within 3 years, it's got over 1,300 of these affiliates. It's got 250,000 members. So it grows very quickly, okay? And through it, The Liberator, William Lloyd Garrison's publication, really becomes the dominant voice in the abolition movement, okay? And so Garrison, but also anyone who's contributing to this newspaper, is becoming a leader in the abolitionist movement, okay? And now Garrison at the time is kind of by, people on the other side condemned as this crazy fanatic, right? But he is someone who was very savvy, right? Not just was he morally right, but he was very savvy at understanding that this was a fight that was going to be played out in the newspapers, and it was a fight for public opinion. Okay, that you had to win that battle first. You had to change people's hearts and minds, and then you're going to be pursuing those political goals. So he's not impractical, is the point I'm making, right? He's not only morally correct, he's not impractical, because you've got to make this strong moral case, this uncompromising moral case in the public, right? That's the only way, right, that you're ever going to change things, okay? And you do have to call for immediate change. You do have to call for an immediate end of the evil. And if you don't do that, it's not going to change, right? It's not going to change by itself. You got to fight for it here and now. And so he brings that element, that urgency, to the anti-slavery movement, organizes it, and it becomes, by 1838, a very powerful and influential movement in the United States.